Beautiful Tuesday, February 6th. And today, hot topic, special guest, our East District Manager for our Blue Team, Miss Stacy Priest. What we know, we got to look at price adjustments. If you've had a listing, it's been out there to an extent, we go 14 to 30 days. We got a pretty solid idea. But now that we're through all of the holidays, we're through January, this is definitely a hot topic. So, guys, there she is. Miss Stacy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Darwin. Okay. Yeah, we've had this come up several times in the last couple of months. Um, we have, sorry, that's my bad. Where we've had some real struggles because a lot of our agents, especially our less seasoned agents who haven't been through, some of the things that the rest of us have been through, like, the market crash and all those good things years and years ago. Things are changing a little bit, especially over the last year with prices rising, interest rates rising, low inventory. It's made for a really tumultuous market. So we thought we'd start with touching on how to approach your clients and have conversation with your clients concerning price reductions, with the ultimate goal of they're on board with you and they're not hating you at the end of this conversation. So, you know, we're going to go by a step-by-step list, and then I'm going to sum it up with a couple of tips on kind of word exchanges that you can use to make things sound a little less harsh going in. So let's start with you're in a situation, you have a listing, it's been on the market for 60 to 90 days, which in all seriousness seems like a long time these days, but in reality, over the history of listings, that is not a bad market time. Can anybody else remember when we used to shoot for a 6 to 12 month listing rather than a 3 to 6 month listing? Those were interesting days. So when you get to that situation where you have a listing that's could be stale, could be overpriced, but what you've concluded is that, and when you've exhausted all other avenues or possibilities, it probably is a price reduction that you're looking for. I'm going to preface it with, the market not being what it was a year or two ago. I think we should be going into every listing having set ourselves up for success by having a conversation with your seller about when or what would preclude you from having the conversation with them about a price reduction. My suggestion is that you set time frames where you'll reevaluate what you might need to do, and whether it's price reduction or other things that you might be asking of your seller, along with a market update. Because a lot of this, you don't want to go in there taking responsibility for a price situation, whether you're too high or whatnot, and whether you're going to have that conversation that you established that price for them. Because a lot of times we don't, right? We've had all kinds of training that goes into saying, you know what, it is the seller's decision, what they're going to list at. We can provide the information to them that helps them to make that decision. But in the long run, we all know that the seller is the decision maker when it comes to that. So with that being said, let's get into it. So we're going to go through, I'm going to give you about 7 or 8 steps that you can take towards having a successful price reduction conversation. First of all, you want to start out with, let's start out with how we got here. So go back to the beginning and frame the situation with the context that you want to remind your clients when they first began talking about selling their home. Typically, the process probably started several months prior to this conversation that you're having with them. So take them back to how we got here. Paint an accurate picture of what has happened. Have your information ready to go. You should know, going into the conversation, the typical things like how many days you've been on the market, how many showings there has been, what your feedback is, and what has the market done in that time frame. Not just from when the listing started, but from when they actually started talking about selling their home and what motivated them to sell their home. So let's say you started a conversation, I don't know, back in August, with a client, and it took them, you did your market analysis for them, sat and talked about what they needed to do to get their home on the market. And let's say they finally got to listing the property in end of October, beginning of November. What has changed since then, in that time frame from August, basically? Interest rates changed in that time period. You're going to say, we've had 25 showings over the last 60 days. You just want to make sure that you have all of your information ready to go. It's imperative that your clients understand how much the market has changed first and foremost in that time frame. So basically, do your homework, come prepared. Number two, in approaching your clients, it's a good idea to create a story. You've developed a relationship with these people over the last 4 or 5 months, and sellers are naturally emotional about the sale of their home, right? Anybody who's sold a couple of homes knows that this is an emotional time for a seller, especially when they haven't had success at selling their home. So great strategy for reframing the blame game on whether it's your fault, their fault. First go in trying to reframe their mindset. So kind of create a hero, the victim and the villain, let's say. And you want to make your sellers feel like they're the heroes. You're going to provide them with information that can help them to obtain their goal. And so you're not going to necessarily focus immediately on value or price adjustments. You want to lead them to conclude that that is the solution to the problem, though. Don't let them turn you into the villain. I would try to, as much as you can, focus on the market and what the market has done in this time frame, and use that in order to leverage your knowledge that you've brought to them about all those things that we talked about in step one. And if anybody's interested, at the end of this, I have several scripts that will help you walk through these steps with your clients. And I'll pass those along to Darwin, and he can distribute those to anybody who might be interested, or anybody that was on the call today. Number three, when you're presenting your suggestion of a price reduction, be confident and be bold in your information that you present it, how you present it, and then what you're asking for. What we've found is that, going in and asking for a 1 or 2% price reduction really might not be what it's going to take in order to move that property. It's very typical. Like nobody's advertising at Macy's a 1% off sale, or a 2% off sale. So make sure that when you're going and asking for that price reduction, the price reduction is impactful, not just a show of effort. actually make it worth it. So stand out with, bold numbers, whether you're going to, ask for a percentage or a dollar amount, make sure that it's worth it to a potential buyer. That's going to help. I guess that's going to help you be more successful. And the only thing probably worse than going to a seller with a price reduction request is a second price reduction request. So you want to make it impactful enough to attract more buyers to the table. You might even, number 4, consider selling them on a second number, a higher number. When you're ready to present a price reduction request, you're gonna get some pushback. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You're gonna get often, whether it might not be, a blatant pushback, but you're gonna get questions. You're gonna get resistance. You're gonna get confusion. There's a lot of different things, as well as all of those emotions that a seller brings to the table. So one strategy I might use, if you want let's say a $5,000 reduction, you might go in with your information and suggest to them a $10,000 reduction, let's say, twice as much, and give them the upper hand to have negotiated with you on a smaller reduction. Whereas you really wanted the $5,000 reduction to start with, you might want to start high, and your negotiations will settle somewhere that is acceptable to both you and the seller, and it's effective. Does that make sense? Anybody wants to reply, they can, or has a question on that strategy.
Yep, sure does.
Thank you. All right. I also have a script for that. I have a really good script for that when you're going in and you're negotiating with the seller for that reduction and going in a little bit higher with the hopes of settling on that original number that you had in your head. Another great suggestion, I probably should have started with this one, is really a seller, buyer, you, me, nobody likes surprises, So one approach you can use is to give your clients a heads up a few days in advance of having that conversation with them. So let's say you want to meet with them on a Monday evening after work. Give them a call on Thursday or Friday. And that gives them time to kind of prepare that mindset for a Monday evening meeting. And it also gives them the opportunity to kind of emote, that initial, I guess, pushback, or, that alarm that they have when they think they're going to be reducing their price and getting less. Let them kind of stew over it, for a weekend. They can, obviously offer up the opportunity to, call out to you should they have questions between now and then. But really, especially, a husband and a wife, that gives them a chance to meet that out, stress out about it over the weekend, really lets them get their defenses ready and gets their questions out on the table. So, you let them decompress ahead of time. And then by the time you talk to your clients on Monday, hopefully they'll be more prepared for the conversation and a little bit more suggesting of your suggestions. Giving them time to process what they interpret to be, somewhat bad news can help everybody involved in that conversation. Number 6, it's a price reduction, and a lot of it comes down to financials. But I think if you bring them back during your conversation to their ultimate goal, and this goes back to a lot of things that we've heard Darwin say and Alex say over, the last few years, reminding them of their goal, what motivated them. And even though, we run across sometimes that people, the motivation can be money. That's not usually their motivation. The motivation usually centers around something like, my family's grown. My family's gone. I'm downsizing. I'm relocating to, Florida. So really hone in on what their goal is and what their priority is. And remind them that this is one step closer to getting them to where they want to be. So stay focused on those priorities. Remind your clients of what their goal is and reframe the conversation around getting them to that end rather than this temporary situation of, having a price reduction in front of them. If I were to go to somebody and have that conversation about price reductions and it's only about price to them, it's a tougher conversation than if I'm really focusing on their goals and their priorities and how we can work together to make that happen for them. Number 7, again, I'm going to go back to, you want to have this conversation and the end goal is that they are not mad at you or upset with you for the situation. So managing those expectations up front will help, mitigate a lot of those bad feelings or negative feelings. Preparing them in the early stages for when you're going to reevaluate the market, their price, their conditions, feedback from agents on why it may not have been selling. It's important to have those conversations early on so that you have prepared them for this situation. Giving honest feedback from showings is essential. You don't have to, present it in a harsh manner. We all know that we have to temper these things. We all do. We're realtors. It's one of our gifts usually. But say, let them know up front that, in 30 days, we're going to reevaluate. At 60 days, then again, we will reevaluate, or maybe it's 45 days. And that way you have set yourself up for success. And it's not a surprise when we come to the conclusion that a price reduction is in order. And then one of my last suggestions, which, we all have agents around us that have different personality types. And I feel the most stress for my empaths in our offices. So my last bit of advice is don't fall in love with the house or the client. You want your buyers to fall in love with the house, but you don't want to fall in love with the house or your sellers. So what I'm saying is don't become emotionally attached to a seller's story or a seller's situation. You need to remain objective, especially when it comes to the expectations of your clients. Your clients are expecting you to guide them in the right direction. And when we tend to get emotionally involved in their situation, I don't think we remain completely objective in our decision making for them. So basically, you want to take yourself out of the transaction. You do not want to become part of that transaction. It's essential that you are the ultimate professional for them in this situation. So, it's important to stay professional and objective in these situations. I have some great objection handlers that I can pass along to with as part of those scripts. You're going to get objections. Of course, we all get caught up with that, and how to best handle some situations like you're just trying to lower my price so you can get a quick sale, or you said we could get, X amount for my house, and now you're trying to tell me differently, you're changing your story. Those are all things that can be difficult to deal with because it feels like a personal attack. But you have to remember, we're going to go back to square one. This is an emotional situation for a seller. So you have to be a little bit empathetic with that, and empathetic with that, and know exactly how to absorb those criticisms and remind them that you're on their team. So basically, at the end of the day, having a price reduction conversation is not easy, but hopefully some of the tips that we use here will make it easier. You know, today's market is so volatile. I don't know if you guys have had conversations in your office, but it's also, we're in a pretty volatile market, but it's also in Michigan, very difficult time when we are dealing with the winter months, that affects the market even without, terrific gains in interest rates, or, housing prices inflating at a rate that we haven't seen for this long, which, buyers, sellers, regardless, that all contributes to a very tumultuous market. But some of it's just seasonal at the same time. And so knowing when to go in and ask for that price reduction, I think I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. It depends on, every listing is different and depends on the situation. I think the biggest caveat to all of this is that you want to prepare your clients upfront before you ever even think about a price reduction. You want to prepare them up front. So make sure you're scheduling those market updates with them, and preparing them for that conversation down the road, should you have it. Before I go into some words that will help you to enhance your real estate communication, anybody have any questions about those things that we went over? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Anybody have any suggestions for the group? All right, last but not least, who here has had that price reduction conversation in the last few months with a client? Nobody's had to have a price reduction conversation? Jen, I
one
see you.
hand that went up.
I see you. Take yourself off mute, Jen. There you are. Oh, your volume's not working. Or your audio, excuse me.
Danette had one of those price adjustments.
Where?
Hi there, this
Charlotte?
is Danette.
Danette, thank you. When did you last have to have this conversation?
Well, I am kind of having the conversation pretty often with them because they are very hesitant to reduce the price. I actually listed this property back in the end of May, and I gave them an idea of where I thought the price would be, and they came in over 100,000 more. And I wasn't going to take the listing, but they are moving to Tennessee. They want to be by the grandchildren. They've already started moving. So I thought, okay, eventually when they see the feedback, they will kind of come around, because this sale has to happen for their goal to be met. So I have got them to come down 25,000, but I still think we're a good 75,000 away.
And when is the last, did that $25,000 price reduction come all at once?
Yes,
And how long has it been since you had that price reduction?
about 2 months.
Okay, so have you set them up with an expectation of when you'll reevaluate price next?
I did tell them I thought it would be a good idea to reevaluate after the holidays. And I said, let's go to about the end of January, and then maybe we can do a whole new marketing campaign with a price reduction. But they're kind of in a rural area. So people keep driving by and stopping in front of their house. They stop at the sign, they look, they pull up their driveway. They're on 10 acres. So, and they've sat there for like even an hour at a time. So when I broach this conversation, they keep telling me, but you know, people are stopping by. You're going to be getting phone calls. And of course I don't, because we're overpriced. And we've had, you know, in this whole time, we've had about 5 showings. And I've also talked to them about that as well. So
That is a struggle. Have you, you know, in this market, we have very savvy buyers because they have so much information available to them. Right off the bat. It's funny that you say that, you know, they can see people sitting in their driveway or sitting in front of their home, but at the same time, they're not heeding that comparison on the number of people that do that to the number of showings that they've had. You know, it that's going to be a tough, they're a tough cookie. But again, I think that the key to them is reminding them of the goal, you know, the end goal.
right. And I know as we get closer to spring, if this does not heat up again, and I've told them again, then you know, we need to end of February, beginning of March, we need to hit the beginning of the selling season hard. And because they are in Macomb Township, but they are in Macomb County out in Armada, they have a well and septic. So last summer they had that inspection. That inspection lasts for 1 year. So I've also put that in their kind of in their bonnet, letting them know we need to really ramp this up. We need to be sold before that expires.
Yeah. And do they,
I was gonna say, there's a question as to what the price is.
what's the price, Danette?
Oh, the price is currently at 575, 575,000, 10 acres, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, older but well cared for ranch, but with a very big barn.
And did you say that they've already started moving, so they have a place in Tennessee?
They have not found their place in Tennessee. That's the other thing that they're telling me is we need to net at least 500,000 in order to get the home we want in Tennessee. And you know, there's difference between wants and needs, and I try to kind of explain that a little bit to them as well. What they really want is to be by their grandchildren. So you know, and you know, we get along really well, and they know that when I came in, I estimated 375 to 425 as a list price. So now I think it's actually pushed up a little bit. We do have some listings that are a little bit higher, but I just don't think we're going to get the action unless we're under 500.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. That's going to be a consistency. You just got to consistently have those conversations with them until, you know, reminding them of their goal. What, like you said, the ultimate goal is to be by the grandchildren. Somehow, you know, you can't do that without selling. So we got to do whatever it takes to sell at this point, you know. Jen, were you able to get your volume back or your audio back? Oh, she's not. All right. Thanks for your input, Danette. Let me go over a couple of things with you guys real quick on communication in your conversations. Just some, I came across this because, you know, clients can be a little tricky. So this is called careful communication. So I'm gonna ask you guys to participate with some suggestions, and then I'll dive into what the alternative. Instead of using the word contract, which can be an intimidating word, is there another word that you might use instead? I need participation.
Listing agreement?
Listing agreement, that's a good one. Anybody else have a suggestion? Because, and I'm gonna just go on because a contract can be a purchase agreement or a listing agreement. You could just say purchase agreement, or try just using the word paperwork, because there's a lot less uh, legal implication when you just say paperwork. We all have paperwork, right? Number two, commission. Commission can bring up thoughts of somebody getting paid for doing very little work, unfortunately. What's another word that you can use in place of commission? I know, I feel everybody's gears churning.
It's even on a new agreement, it's a great word to be able to use. There it was. I got it here. Compensation.
You're right. That's the suggestion here. Instead of saying, my commission rate is, or, I get paid, compensated or compensation can really lessen the impact of, that connection between commission and little work. Number three, the word price is used in absolutely everything we deal with every day, including today's topic. Real estate's different because of it's the best investment anyone can make in their lives. So try using the word investment. That takes a lot of the angst out of it, as well as actually promoting a positive in someone's mindset if they're making a great investment rather than getting a great price. 4, problems. Instead of problems, which also we deal with on a daily basis, what's another word we can use?
Challenge.
Challenge. Exactly. That's a great replacement. Instead of a problem, it's not a problem, it's just a little challenge. Challenge doesn't feel like something that's insurmountable, whereas a problem can sometimes sound alarming and insurmountable. Number 5, deposit. When you're asking for a deposit, it can trigger all kinds of, bad experiences or make clients nervous to give you a deposit because they think they're giving it all away. What's another word that can be used instead of deposit? It's a repeat, by the way. You can simply say an investment again. You can use that for, I think, instead of price, investment, deposit, investment. How about like just in our day-to-day, when we use the word seller, like especially with your buyers, can make people feel kind of defensive. Seller puts a financial strain into the conversation. What's another word that we would prefer to use over seller?
One here was owner.
Yep, homeowner, even better, because it's just like we were probably all taught in the beginning of our careers, like house. Instead of a house, don't ever call it just a house. It's a home to someone, especially when you're dealing with a seller. When you're referring to their house, or a buyer, convincing them that this is going to be their home. It's not just a house. So a homeowner would be a great replacement for the word seller. 7, buyer. Again, Another replacement for that home buyer instead of just a buyer.
Hmm?
8,
Me too.
instead of using the word bank, which I've never even thought about, but it can be a little bit, again, it puts that financial strain into the conversation. What do we often use this as a replacement for bank? What do we call it?
I don't either.
You're dealing with a lender. Your lender. And instead of asking someone to sign the paperwork, a suggestion here is ask them to approve it. This one gives them the power and doesn't make them feel as though they're signing their life away. And last one, gonna go right back to our original conversation or original topic, price reduction. Price reduction doesn't sound as good as a couple of, I know there's got to be a couple of suggestions out there. We see them on sign riders and stuff like that instead of reduction. Can anybody come up with a substitute for that?
Adjustment.
Adjustment is a great one. Anybody else?
Improvement.
Improvement, that's a great one. I just saw a sign rider yesterday and said price improvement. Another suggestion here is try price repositioning. Especially when you're dealing with a difficult seller. Repositioning. All right. So anybody have any questions? We can all share as part of, not even questions, just situations that they've run into that they feel like they could gain some knowledge from some other fellow realtors. Does anybody have, I see a lot of names, but does anybody have a price reduction conversation coming up?
Nope.
Oop. Hopefully you don't need to, but I think we're running into it more and more. I'm trying to look in my. All right. I don't see anything. Oh, didn't. All right. Anybody have anything else they'd lend to the conversation?
You know, one that I
Darwin?
would throw out, yeah. If the price improvement, the price adjustment is important, is it as important as it was when you went out to see them to take the listing? So I'm not sure that you mentioned this, Stacy, but I would encourage you to have this conversation face to face. Go back and see them again.
For sure, like we were talking about in all reality, setting them up for that conversation and giving them time to, process before. And then absolutely, we are such a digital society, I know.
Mhm.
And it may not always be 100% necessary because we have investors that there's times when you just know it's a price, issue, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you should be having this conversation face to face with the seller.
Absolutely.
All right. Darwin, I'm gonna let you wrap it up then.
All right. So guys, give it up for Miss Stacy here, right?
Thank you.
We got loud
Stacy.
applause here, loud applause.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, I want to give you for next week, it is Tuesday's deep dive. And as we know, the first few months of the year, we are really trying to focus on lead generation. Next week's deep dive is the 1-hour program, and we will have Miss Karina Ball, April Todd, Dawn Hendricks, and Ariel Sanchez. These guys are very well known for their working of their sphere of influence. Talking with Ariel yesterday, 90% of his business is from his sphere of influence, and he's an 8 million plus producer. So join us next week. And if you'd like, I've got 3 of those 4 that are joining me here in Rochester. So if you'd like to come be with us, we'll be here in Rochester. That's from noon until 1. You can come watch the program live. And of course, as always, it will be here on Zoom. So everybody have a great one. That wraps up another Hot Topic Tuesday. Stacy, thank you for taking it over today. Everybody, go have fun, enjoy the weather.
talk to
And
people.
you know what? Go talk to people,
Go
knock
talk to
on some
people.
doors. What the heck? See you guys.
Okay, I have a new question.
Well, hey, it's a